If you just spent $25 on tomato fertilizer, you might want to think twice before opening that bag. Because these two tomato plants started exactly the same. Same pot, same soil, same seeds, same conditions. But this plant got a $1.40 pantry mix twice a week. And that plant got plain water. At first the difference was small. Week 1, you might even miss it if you were not looking carefully. But by week 2, the treated plant was clearly taller. The stem looked stronger. The whole plant had more force behind it. Then came week 4. And this is where things started getting hard to ignore. Thicker stems, faster growth, more energy in the plant. And according to the result being tested, up to 64% more tomatoes. Now, I'm going to show you the exact 4-ingredient recipe. But be careful, because there is one very simple mistake with tap water that can kill this entire mix before it even starts. And that sumanoi, this is not magic. This is not some miracle claim. This is my own test. 2 plants. My garden. 4 weeks. I'm not claiming it works identically in every condition. Soil type, climate, watering habits, and even water quality can all change your results. But here's where it gets interesting. A 2022 study on baker's yeast showed a nearly 20% jump in plant height. But the fruit yield, that is what stopped me cold. Over 64% more tomatoes per plant. And here is the visual proof that the mix is actually alive. About 10 to 15 minutes after you add the yeast and molasses to warm water, you start seeing foam. That foam is carbon dioxide. That means millions of living organisms are waking up inside your jar. That is not chemistry class. That is your $1.40 pantry mix doing exactly what it is supposed to do. The difference is not genetics. It is not watering. It is not sunlight. The difference is what is happening underground. Scientists call it the microbial cascade. Here's the exact 4-ingredient recipe, and pay very close attention to step 2, because this is where most people accidentally kill the mix. 1 tablespoon of active dry yeast, 2 tablespoons of unsulfured molasses, not the blackstrap kind, just regular unsulfured molasses, 1 cup of buttermilk, and 1 tablespoon of baking soda. That is it. Total cost per gallon is about $2.34 at regular grocery prices. Buy yeast in bulk and you can get it under $1.40. Now compare that with $25 to $40 per season for commercial fertilizer. So here is how you make it. Step 1. Start with 1 gallon of water. It needs to be warm. Think warm like a bath, not hot like a shower. The sweet spot is between 105 and 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Mistake number 1 is heat. If your water is above 130 degrees Fahrenheit, the yeast dies before it even wakes up. Your whole mix becomes biologically dead. At that point, you are not feeding your soil. You are just pouring expensive warm water on your plants. All right. Once the water is warm, add your tablespoon of yeast and your 2 tablespoons of molasses. Stir gently. You want them to dissolve, not foam yet. Then set your timer. Mistake number 2 is overnight proofing. People say to let it sit overnight. Do not do that. After about 3 hours, the yeast runs out of sugar and starts producing ethanol. That is alcohol. And that buildup can actually damage your roots. The sweet spot is 2.5 hours. Set a timer. Once your mix is foaming, and you will know because it looks a lot like a sourdough starter doing its thing, add your cup of buttermilk and your tablespoon of baking soda. Stir gently. Then top it up to 1 full gallon with more warm water. Mistake number 3 is tap water. And more important, this is the mistake that looks harmless. You can do every other step right, use the right ingredients, wait the right amount of time, keep the water warm but not too hot, and still kill the mix before it ever reaches your tomato roots. If you are using tap water, leaving it out overnight does not remove chloramine. That matters. Because chloramine is the disinfectant most cities use now. It does not simply evaporate like old chlorine. And chloramine can kill the live microbes in your mix. Here's the fix. It takes 5 seconds. Crush a tiny pinch, about 1/40th of a 1,000 milligram vitamin C tablet, into your water before you add anything else. Ascorbic acid neutralizes chloramine instantly. No waiting, no complicated setup, just a little pinch. Tap water varies everywhere, so comment and tell us if your city uses chlorine or chloramine, because it actually changes how you need to brew this. Now, how much do you use? Scale it to your plant. For seedlings, just use a few drops along the outer edge of the soil twice a week. For transplants, use 1/4 to 1/2 cup as a soil drench twice a week. For a mature fruiting vine, use 1 to 1.5 cups twice a week. Always apply it to the soil, not the leaves. That is the recipe. But here's what I really want you to understand. Why does a $1.40 pantry mix do what a $25 fertilizer cannot? The answer is something scientists call the microbial cascade. And once you see it, you will never look at your soil the same way again. Think of your soil like a massive sleeping bakery. It is full of workers, billions of them, just waiting for the right signal to wake up. This pantry mix is like dropping a bubbling sourdough starter into the bowl. The yeast kicks off a chain reaction that wakes up dormant helpers already resting in your dirt. Scientists call it the rhizosphere cycle. Simply put, your roots feed the microbes, and the microbes mine minerals for your roots. It is a 24-hour underground mining loop. And that summa noi, that is the part most people miss. They look at the plant above the soil, but the real work is happening below it. Now here is what each ingredient actually does. The yeast produces B vitamins and compounds called cytokinins, which trigger cell division and root branching. It also releases siderophores. Think of those as tiny keys that unlock iron trapped in your soil and convert it into a form your plant can actually use. Molasses does two things. First, it is the carbon bridge that pulls the yeast out of dormancy. It is the sugar that tells the yeast to wake up and get to work. Second, it delivers trace minerals like potassium, calcium, iron, and magnesium directly to the native microbes already living in your soil. Buttermilk brings lactobacillus. That is the same beneficial bacteria found in yogurt. It suppresses pathogenic fungi in the soil and releases soluble calcium your plant can absorb immediately. That is what helps prevent blossom end rot, that dark sunken spot on the bottom of your tomatoes. Because we are using basic pantry items, you avoid the harsh chemicals found in many commercial fertilizers, and baking soda creates a slight alkaline shift on the soil surface that suppresses powdery mildew. Just keep it to 1 tablespoon per gallon. Too much sodium over time can interfere with calcium uptake in clay soils. Follow the recipe exactly, and you will not have that issue. So here is the answer to the question I opened with. Why does a $1.40 pantry mix outperform a $25 fertilizer? Because fertilizer feeds the plant once. This mix feeds the entire soil ecosystem continuously. You're not just adding nutrients, you're hiring a microscopic army to mine nutrients for your plant around the clock for free. That is the science. And now let me leave you with one thing you can do tonight. Let's bring it all together. Your tomatoes do not crave fertilizer. They crave living soil, full of microbes working for them around the clock. Stop feeding the plant. Start feeding the soil. The recipe is simple. 1 tablespoon of yeast, 2 tablespoons of unsulfured molasses, 1 cup of buttermilk, 1 tablespoon of baking soda. Mix it into 1 gallon of warm water. Proof it for 2.5 hours. Apply it to the soil twice a week and avoid the 3 mistakes that can ruin everything. Water too hot, proofing overnight, and tap chloramine. Tonight, go grab those 4 items. Tomorrow morning, while your coffee is brewing, mix the yeast and molasses into 2 cups of warm water. Set a timer for 2.5 hours. This weekend, your first application is done. By day 10, check your leaf color. It should look noticeably deeper and greener. By week 3, feel the stems. They should be thicker, firmer, and more alive. More branching comes next. And by harvest time, your neighbors may lean over that fence and ask what on earth you've been doing to your tomatoes. Now you can tell them exactly why it works. The secret was already living in your soil. You just gave it a little help waking up. And now that your soil is packed with microbes working for you, the next step is to protect them from summer heat. If this was useful, comment with your own tomato results, like the video, and subscribe for more practical growing tests and honest garden tips.